This bill is a perfect example of this. Taking that eternal, unchangeable principle, that eternal truth, and applying it to changing times. Did AI exist in Aristotle? No. But we're taking these principles and applying them to changing events and times because we believe that they are eternal, that are objective. They're not subjective. And with any law, this is how our legislature on any issue should write its legislation and laws. Good morning, Idaho. Welcome to the Local Yokel Idaho podcast, where we talk about what is going on in the wonderful state of Idaho. For those tuning in for the first time, we like to have a little banter before we get into the stories, but I understand if you're short on time, we all have to have our priorities there. So we provided timestamps in the description so you can jump straight to the stories that you're interested in. For those that stayed for the banter, welcome. Glad to have you here with us. Hopefully you had a relaxing Memorial Day. I most certainly did. I was planning on going out and doing some stuff, but it ended up being way more relaxing. I just kind of stayed here in the Treasure Valley. But also, speaking of someone who enjoys relaxing, like any human being, I think, I have John co-hosting with me again today.
Yeah, I'm here, and I do like relaxing. It was a good weekend. It was great weather. The pool's opened. My kids have been at it. I think they're on, day. Well, okay, no. So it's Friday today. The Treasure Valley pools are opening today. And so my kids are there right now as we are talking with my wife. But no, it's good. It's good. Summer's starting. Summer activities are going. I know most kids are out of school.
Oh, yeah. No, it's been great. Except for the fact that Idaho, it seems like, there again, everywhere we love to talk about it, and we'll be talking about it on our second story today. But it seems to always not be quite sure how to make up its mind, and it doesn't like to follow a consistent pattern. Like this last week and the week before, it's been weird that okay, cool, one day super cold, and we had a thunderstorm here in the Treasure Valley, and then another one, it's like, oh, yep, it's hot.
Yeah, I saw a meme, and it was, I finally understand why it's called May. It may be hot, it may be cold, it may rain, it may snow,
That is perfect. Perfect for
That's
Idaho.
why it's called May. Yep. Yep. Yeah, but let's see. In other news, I know the big story going on right now is the in the political world, at least, is you have it's not the indictment, and not the verdict. The jury in the Trump case.
That one, yeah.
Right. That's the big one, I think.
Yes.
The jury came out with a ruling on that. Apparently found him guilty of
everything. If I remember correctly, it was just everything. It
was guilty on all counts, but then the question is, all right, but what's he guilty of?
Question mark.
Yeah. He's guilty of.
If you expect a kangaroo court to not give a kangaroo ruling, then you're not expecting correctly.
That's right. Well, and that's the funny thing is I've been listening to people talk about it today and even last night is a lot of the Republican pundits are like, "Oh my goodness, what's going on?" And there's a lot of us who are like, "You mean we weren't expecting this? We were hoping, obviously we were hoping that the jury would come back and be like, "Oh yeah, no, none of this actually makes sense because we listened to the testimony and then we impartially judged." But of course that's not how it works. But I mean, that's the political side of things. But then you go on the deeper side of things, and hey, I'm just here doing what I'm supposed to do. I was talking with my wife last night. It's like, hey, as the world burns, what am I supposed to do? Well, I'm supposed to do here, and I'm supposed to do what I'm called to do.
Right. Yeah.
And that's that.
Don't get me wrong. I care about things, and there's a point to caring and all that and everything, but I definitely know I can sometimes be very relaxed when even sometimes it's like, Tyler, focus. I'm like, okay, fine. Okay. I'll get, I'll get wound up about something, but I think I watched there again. Anyone that's a longtime listener knows I enjoy listening to Michael Knowles. But he did some short or something. He posted, maybe it was a tweet. I can't remember at this point, but anyhow, the gist of it was basically, yeah, this was kind of expected. It was in New York. The court was already a circus. The judge wasn't doing, what he should have to a lack of a certain degree. The jury was kind of all over the place. What do you expect? Now, That said, the thing that
Yeah.
we'll be curious to see is like most things with court, I have no doubt it's going to be appealed. And I don't know the makeup of the district courts in that area or if that's something you can appeal, because I know you have different courts, but generally with most court systems that I understand around the United States, there's an appeal system. You can kind of go up the chain. So it'll be interesting to see if the higher court takes it on. And at that point, you might actually have a little bit more. So it just means you get to enjoy more Trump drama and hear Trump and watch the left lose their minds for another couple months as it goes to then a higher court, and that higher court deals with it.
Well, and the bigger, I guess the bigger implication, and this is where locally it does start mattering. The bigger implication here is, all right, so looking down the train of events is, okay, so Trump is not indicted, whatever. Trump is found guilty. He's going to be sentenced to something. There will be a cost to this. What happens in the election? Who ends up getting elected? Because for the last, I don't know, 6 elections, the losing side has complained that something was done wrong. I mean, I remember all the way back to Bush.
Yeah, that was
Al Gore he beat.
Bush v. Gore or something? No.
Yeah, Bush Gore, like hanging Chads in Florida. I remember the show How I Met Your Mother made a joke about hanging Chads that Halloween. So yeah, I mean, going all the way back there, the loser has been complaining, and it's just been getting worse every year. And for a long time, it was Democrats, and then Republicans complained about it, and then Democrats complained, and now Republicans. And so the big question is, all right, so what happens in this coming election? Like, what if Trump is sent to prison,
right,
and then receives the popular vote and all of the electoral college votes? Like, what happens? I know the left is going to riot and cause a ruckus. What happens if shenanigans happen again? Like, and so looking at what do we do locally is the question, right? So locally, 1, we vote, like that's a big deal. 2, we call our politicians and tell them to vote for what we want them to vote for. And 3, we may even get on the horn with our DA and have him start looking into what legal cases can actually be brought against people who have done illegal things. And I know here in Idaho, our legislature and our Raul Labrador, they've done a good job of pushing for things that we want. Which reminds me, I just finished editing the interview that you did with Senator Ben Adams. Senator? He is a senator at this point.
Senator. Yeah, he was in the House 2020, then this last year, and then he ran again, and he's got his primary.
Yeah, so one of the things he said, I laughed because I remembered saying it, is, we're seeing our legislator put through bills that are moving in the direction culturally that we'd like to see. We've defined men and women. We're doing no gender surgeries for minors. We're going to talk here in a minute about AI stuff. Like, and like he said in that interview, and I said before that, politics is downstream of culture. Well, if that's where culture is moving, then that's where politics is going to move eventually. And so that, I guess that's the question always is, wow, this big thing happened nationally. What do I do? Well, live your life. Do what you know is right. Stand up for what you know is right. Speak what is true. Vote for the people who are going to be the best at the job. Like those are the things that we do locally. And I think that's the biggest thing that we as local Republican people, or local conservative people at least, need to hear is just do your job.
Be involved, do your job, and the final thing I would give, I think people often forget, and it can seem daunting, but most of the time there's always a certain level of training and classes leading up to it, and if you do one, then you're usually able to fit it for the other. Work at a polling location. If you want to make sure that the election process is fair, right, the best thing you can do is be part of that process and be a check within it. There's something to be said after. I'm not disagreeing, but if you want to make sure that you're like, no, I don't want that. I don't want the drama. I don't want it being rigged. I don't want to be stolen or something. I want to make sure, I want to feel confident that it's done right. Then go work at a polling location and be there. Be that accountability part of that equation. And not only, and then sidestepping off that a little bit, and I've heard it oftentimes, and I understand the sentiment, and if it wasn't for the work that I do here with Local Yokel and other stuff, I've heard many Idahoans during election times be like, oh yeah, I'll do the mail-in ballot, or I'll do this or that, because it's Idaho. They don't do those shenanigans here. Respectfully, they don't do that shenanigans here because you have people involved, and when you have apathetic people, then it does come. And I would argue that even though maybe it doesn't happen in mass, I'll grant you that there hasn't been a lot of cases where Idaho, it's like, wait a second, being involved is the best deterrent for that, and that will keep it that way where there is trust in the system here in Idaho in a conservative state. But just sitting there and saying, well, it's fine, that's someone else's problem, or someone else has already solved that, and everyone just decides to keep saying that, that's when you get voter issues and then something creeps in.
Yeah, that's when you apathy is when you run into problems. What's the quote? Evil is allowed to exist when good men do nothing.
Do not fight against it, or something like that.
Okay, hold on. I'm actually going to find the quote. The only thing necessary, that's what it is. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Oh, it's actually, there's no evidence that Edmund Burke actually wrote that. But whatever, it's a good phrase. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing.
It is. It is also interesting that with quotes, there's so many times I wanted to use quotes on the show, and I try to do a pretty good job of, did that quote come from that person? And I can't remember, there was one a long time ago that I was doing on the show, and I wanted to use it. It was like something from Reagan. And I was like going through things. I think I might have messaged like the Reagan Foundation to try to verify, is this actually, when did he say it? What press conference, what thing? You know, whatever, because it was like being quoted, and the reason people were quoting it is like, well, that news publication quoted it, and that place quoted, and then quoted, and it's like, all of you are just quoting yourself. Where where is the source? I mean, it's a great quote, but if it's quoted from that person, I need a little bit more evidence of when.
It's hard to verify who quoted what, and that's a quote from Abraham Lincoln because the internet said so. But anywho, we've rambled plenty. That's what the banter is for. Hopefully you enjoyed. But we'll get into our first story here with our Idaho Bill breakdown. So, Idaho Bill breakdown, House Bill 465, outlawing explicit AI images of children. Last week with House Bill 597, we saw how the Idaho legislature was giving adults in higher education an ability to fight back against getting immunized because, as we all know, a thing called COVID-19 happened. In this week's episode of the Idaho Bill Breakdown, we'll be looking at House Bill 465, which amends and adds to existing law to provide for the crime of visual representations of sexual abuse of children and to revise provisions regarding the Internet Crimes Against Children Unit. I wanted to make sure I quoted that correctly, but it is a little bit long because, you know, they like to make those things wordy there at the legislature. In this breakdown, we'll be seeing exactly what the bill says, how it closes a loophole in Idaho's protection of children, and how our legislator did exactly what lawmakers are supposed to do when writing bills. But to go through all that and kind of break that down, would you like to start us off, John, here with what the bill exactly says? Of course. So this bill expands the definition of sexually exploitative material to include images, video, or other visual depictions created using artificial intelligence or machine learning that appear to show children engaged in explicit sexual conduct, even if no actual children were involved in their creation. The bill makes it a felony to knowingly produce, distribute, receive, possess, or access such AI-generated child sexual abuse material if it is obscene. Violators can face up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine, which is, that's pretty hefty, right? HB 465 also revises provisions regarding the ICAC unit, granting it authority to investigate and prosecute the new crime of visual representations of child sexual abuse. Now, before this bill, Idaho law criminalized the possession, production, and distribution of sexually exploitative material depicting actual children engaged in explicit sexual conduct. The law also established the Internet Crimes Against Children, or ICAC unit, to investigate and prosecute child pornography and solicitation of minors for sex-related offenses. But in recent years, with the advent of AI image generations, this law did not cover explicit materials of minors if an actual minor had not been involved in the act.
So yeah, bringing that all down here into our conclusion here, the bill basically closes that potential loophole by criminalizing the possession and distribution of AI-generated images of children or pornography, in addition to content involving real children. It aims to combat the spread of digitally created child sexual abuse material. The bill also expands the scope and the authority of the ICAC unit to address the new categories of crime, which, bringing that all down into our application there, what does this mean, right? Sometimes some of this can be wordy. I think this one's pretty clear, but basically it's just Idaho rejecting that minors should not be sexualized and updating the laws accordingly to close a loophole.
Well, what's interesting is this is a conversation that I know comes up in libertarian circles quite a bit, is the conversation of AI materials. And I know the libertarian argument is it's not hurting any actual individual, so therefore it should be okay.
This is where a conservative and libertarians start to have we're similar, but applications have differences.
Right, because what we're saying is that, and it gets esoteric here, because I would agree with the libertarian who says yes, when you I mean, basically you're drawing a picture. When you're drawing a picture, that picture doesn't necessarily, it's not. You're not drawing you're not drawing a picture of an individual. You're just drawing a picture of random.
It's a fictional creation. It's something that you're pulling on your imagination. It's not actually an act done upon a person.
Right. And I would say AI imagery is doing the same thing. If you tell it to draw a picture of a person, well, it'll do that. And it's not of any specific person. It's just, well, this is the person that it decided to draw. Now, you can have AI draw you pictures of specific people. Facebook and Instagram are littered with pictures of actual people that are AI generated. And It's quite disgusting. But so I understand the libertarian position of you're not actually hurting any specific person by having this. And I get that, and I understand that. The problem is that behavior is lewd and vile and should be made anathema.
Right. And I mean, I think the part that you get into there where you start having a difficulty is the libertarian, I think the most common way it's described where I've heard it is the non-aggression principle. If you do a thing that doesn't directly affect me, then you're free to do that thing. And in general, that sounds great. But I think there's a major flaw there that as a conservative or someone who even has, maybe you're not conservative, maybe you're more moderate, but you come from more of a religious background or a background where there is a stronger moral compass, there is this idea that, okay, yes, you could do an action and it doesn't affect anyone, but as a society, we should discourage vice and encourage virtue. Now, that doesn't mean that we sit there and we're being the thought police and we're knocking down your door or whatever else, right? By no means that. But that in the public square, when you're publicly and when you're creating images, then those images can be distributed into the public square, right? And if they make it to the public square, this is where this law would start applying, right? That you're discouraging that. You're saying, no, as a society, that is not good. It's not courage to encourage. We don't want to encourage those thoughts. We don't want to encourage those ideas growing in things. Now, if you figure out, I guess, a way to make this super private and it never gets out to the public, then in theory, that's where a conservative principle would start to, it would work in a sense. But the libertarian, I would say, this is where more of a libertarian mindset, I respectfully, with people I know, that I would disagree that no, a law like this is good because this is evil, this is wrong, and we should not encourage it or we should not allow it. We should discourage it.
Well, and that even comes down to the difference between a liberal a liberal conservative and a conservative Christian. Because what a conservative Christian will do to take it that next step, because you said, all right, so, so long as you keep it in your bedroom and if you're just drawing pictures all by yourself and it'll never get out, well, then that's okay. Well, the problem is the conservative Christian looks at the Bible, and the Bible says to get rid of that type of evil from your community. And so
Right.
even at that point, yeah, you're not actively harming any particular children. The problem is, though, you're perpetuating evil in life. And so that's why there is pushback from the conservative Christian who truly believes that the Bible is true and gives direction for life.
Right.
And so I can understand there's some amount of give and take when it comes to a lot of different things. But I like where our legislature has gone with this specific bill. I think this is good.
And I mean, one of the points I had in here, and anyone that's listened for a length of time knows I'll use this phrase often, but I think this bill is a perfect example of this. That our legislature has taken eternal principles, or if you want to call them unchangeable truths, that a child sexual acts or encouraging or thinking of those thoughts or in that type of thought process is bad, taking that eternal, unchangeable principle, that eternal truth, and applying it to changing times. Did AI exist in Aristotle? No. Did the AI systems that we have today, exist when the Bible was written? No. But we're taking these principles, we're taking these truths and applying them to changing events and times because we believe that they are eternal and that they have grounding truths that are objective. They're not subjective, and that they apply to all of our things. And with any law, like I said earlier I teased earlier in the introduction, this is how our legislature on any issue should write its legislation and laws. This one, it's a little bit easier to do because I think the vast majority of society, I'm very glad the vast majority of society would say we just should discourage this, but the legislature and lawmakers should always be striving to do things in this way that, yes, for this case, we do it this way, in that case, we do it that way, but we're taking these objective principles and applying them as need be as times and technology and society advances, but humans are still sinners and they're always going to be sinners. So boiling that down, what does that mean? How does it affect you? Well, basically, if you're not super depraved, we're all depraved to a certain degree, and you have that vice or whatever else, it shouldn't apply to you. But for the rest of Idahoans, I think we should take away as an application here that our legislature, on the things that really matter, as much as we hear about the bickering and the squabbling and that person's so evil and this person and that, that no, we in Idaho in our local politics can pass good laws. And this is an example of one of those that is protecting children, that we're adapting, growing the times. Government isn't moving like a slow behemoth where you're like, wait a second, AI was 3 years ago or a decade ago and we're just now getting this on the books and updated. That no, we've got it now. Yes, ChatGPT, I can't remember what year that was came out or whatever, the Dolly AI, I want to say that was like 2021, 2022. It was
that sounds about right.
COVID was tapering off roughly there. Yes, there was a bit of lag, but I would commend, and I think we should be very glad that our legislature was, in the term of politics, pretty quick at this one. Which, if you've made it this far in the show, that probably means you've enjoyed our content, and it probably means you should subscribe or follow us on YouTube, Rumble, or Twitter to stay up to date with all things Idaho. For more content and to support our work, check out our locals page. Really fun one. We're working on it there. If you found our content valuable, please like and share it with friends and family. Your support helps us spread the word about our beautiful state and keep Idahoans informed and engaged. Thank you for being part of the local yokel Idaho community. Now, on to the next segment, which that one was a little bit of a heavier one. So we're going to go a little bit more fun and keeping with all the things that happen with Memorial and kind of getting out. your gears may be turning about different ideas of what you want to go see or do with the family and stuff. I know for myself, at least, it always happens this time of year. You've got spring planting fever, and then you've got like spring to summer traveling fever that will always hit me. Well, for this segment, to solve that for both myself and hopefully you, the viewer, as well, we've made a list of different activities that you can go and do across the valley or just the state in general. We've made sure they're day trips, so if you're just a single person, and usually if you have two more people, it makes it easier to travel, but if it's just one, you don't want to go too far because costs and things, and also driving makes your back hurt. And also, as a large family, I know the logistics can be hard. So anywho, we've made a list here of different activities you can kind of do on a day trip, depending on where you are in the state. But starting off with the most populated area of the state, the Treasure Valley. The first one I know that's opened up and a lot of people enjoy a ton is floating the Boise River. You can rent tubes and rafts and float down it, which is quite refreshing, especially when you've got, I think it's Albertsons and Morrison Park that's right there and a couple other things. It's also really enjoyable to do it late May through June before the water level drops and the temperatures start to soar. Granted, if it's very hot, it might also be nice to be out there in the water. I know another one is the hiking and mountain biking in the foothills. It's definitely better to do that in the springtime because the foothills, they'll get a little toasty, we'll put it that way, as the year kind of marches on. There's a ton of trails. I think we've talked about it a couple times on the midweek report. They're opening new ones each year. Plus, there's many skill levels. So don't feel worried about, I've got a bunch of kids or I haven't done any of that. If you just want to hike it, you don't even have to do bike stuff. There's tons and tons of resources out there for that as well. Or if you like timber, the brush, either works. Similarly, kind of over by it, you've got like the Idaho Botanical Garden that you can stroll through. Honestly, it's weird. It's one of those things I haven't actually gone to do yet, so I might actually do that this year. I hear it's amazing in June, July, and May-ish. And then if you're willing to travel a little bit further in the same direction of the foothills there, you have riding the Glade Runner Mountain Coaster. It's over there by Bogus Basin. It's Idaho's only mountain coaster offering exhilarating rides, as would be the case if you're up in the mountains there. I've heard a couple people really enjoy it. It kind of weaves around different slopes and stuff. It's not powered or anything crazy. I don't like roller coasters normally, but it's basically something you sit on, and it's got a single rail, and you just travel through the woods and stuff as you go down the hill. It looks super, super fun, especially with cool weather when the rail cars and different things aren't going to be too hot. I know another one I may or may not be going to, but it'll be over in Weiser. If you've never been, amazing little town. There will be the Weiser Fiddle Festival that's happening. I know that's coming up. I think we've talked about it on a couple ones. You have the hiking over by the Owyhee Mountains as being another one. And I think we also mentioned it in the banter, John, but aren't swimming pools opening up in the Treasure Valley, right?
Yeah, swimming pools are opening up. Splash pads are opening up. I know the spring and fall is a great time to go hang out at the zoo. So that's a really good thing. There's a lot of cool outdoor stuff there. The other thing is you were talking about mountain biking. I know spring is a great time to go check out the bike parks. So if you're into BMX or your kids are into BMX, or if they like to go up and down on little dirt hills, and kind of get a feel for what off-road biking is, then that can be a lot of fun too. There's also skate parks.
Isn't there one over by the Greenbelt? I'm trying to think of where that is. There's one that's right there. I've seen it. It's like by the Greenbelt, and then you have a bunch of baseball diamonds that are next to it. I'm trying to remember where that's at.
Right. So the one I was thinking is by Fort Boise Park,
which is also near one of the most popular hiking trails, which is Table Rock.
Right. Yeah. So it's right there, right around Table Rock. There's another one.
Which also the Old Penitentiary Museum, another cool thing to go see.
There's another BMX bike park up in Eagle, around the Eagle Sports Complex.
I think that opened recently, if I can't remember.
Right. I think there's one over in,
Middleton. I think there's one.
Yeah, Nampa or somewhere out there. I'm pretty sure there's another one out west somewhere.
I think Kuna has one. I thought almost every town in the valley has one.
Well, and they're really cool. And there was one where we were at in Winchester, Virginia as well. And it's just fun. It's fun to take the kids. It's fun to have them go up and down. It's a great thing to get them outdoors. So that it's fun.
Oh, there's also the Greenbelt. I can't believe I forgot that. There's also that.
Yeah, there is the Greenbelt. So you can do that. You talked about floating the Boise River. There's also a lot of fishing opportunities. If you just want to take your kids out to local local small ponds. There's a ton of small ponds around that you can take your kids to. That's also fun. The other thing that I know is coming up, and I should double check this really quickly. Hold on.
No worries.
So there's the Emmett Cherry Festival that's coming up.
That is the first or second week of June.
Right.
I know
so
I will be in town for that and at the parade. So if you see me there, say hello.
Oh, nice. I think it's right. I think it's, let me actually click on the website. 11 days from recording, June 12 to 15. So it will be a week.
That'll be 9 days for when this comes out.
Yeah, 2 weeks. 12 to 15. Well, okay, so we're recording on the 31st. This comes out on the 2nd. Nine days, sure. But yeah, whatever. It's coming up. Go to it. It's cool.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. I know some years the cherries are ready on time, sometimes not. I wouldn't get your hopes too high for that. Generally, the best time to get the cherries, if you can, is usually after the Emmett Cherry Festival sometimes, depending on how things work out. But that said, if you want to have that total, like, classic America, like 1950s, you want to go enjoy a small town, Emmett is amazing for that. Roanne's Diner, I would highly recommend. That's there in town. They make amazing food. Plus, if you want to stay for the parade, and they usually have a classic car thing that's down there by downtown, by City Hall and everything. It's always a joy. Plus, something I learned last year that I didn't know after going many years for the Emmett Cherry Festival is the Emmett Museum will do like a full reenactment where they'll have people there. They're in period dress there at the museum as well, and you can walk through it, interact, and they'll teach you stuff. Also,
if you're up in Emmett, you can go fruit picking. Like we talked about, it's about to be cherry season. So, you go south in Emmett, right along the mountains. And there are so many orchards down there. I mean, I'm looking at the map right now, and there's Tyler's Rocky Point Orchard, Rancho Pinard, Candy Apple Orchards, Williams Fruit Ranch, Mothership Farms, Gem Orchard, Stand 2. Like there's a lot of places to go pick fruit. So that can be a lot of fun also, as a cool family activity. It costs money because you have to buy the fruit.
But in the grand scheme of things, it's probably cheaper than ice cream.
Yeah, it ends up being pretty cheap, and it's a fun activity. So yeah, we've done that in the past, and it's fun.
And then moving over to Eastern Idaho, don't feel like you're left out. I know sometimes I feel like when I'm looking at new stuff, you guys do. It's kind of hard sometimes, but you definitely have the Mesa Falls over there that you can go see. There's the upper and lower half of it. Like we've talked about in other parts of the show, it's often the falls there are compared to Niagara Falls. In some ways, they're actually larger or ahead of Niagara Falls in some numbers. I just can't remember off the top of my head. Great place to go when there's a high flow rate moving through it. Nice day trip there. The one is there's lots of great fishing over on that side. I know there's Anderson Reserve and a couple others if you want to do your research there to find them that are just great for it. The ones I got here is the Snake River, Port Nafura River, American Falls Reserve, and many more there that with the cool temperatures will be kind of nice to be out in the water, and hopefully if it's calm. Also, you can enjoy trail rides through Parks Meadow and along the Henry Forks River before the heat warms up too much and the grass gets all stickily. So that's one thing you can also do. And speaking of things outdoors and also sometimes a little bit weird, you have Craters of the Moon, if you didn't know about that, over in Eastern Idaho. Granted, it kind of... when you travel by, you're like, wait a second, it makes you pause and it instantly grabs your attention. But also, if you don't want to be cooked, it might be nice to go there in the spring before everything gets a lot hotter and the rock all warms up a ton and the sun's doing its full thing there. And then something you can also do later into the year. I've been meaning to do it. I just have not gotten to it. You can do it all year. I think over in the Treasure Valley, you have the Cuna Caves as well that are similar but not the same. As you have the Shoshone Caves. You can do that all summer, especially in the heat of summer, because you go in there and it's cold. You almost have to wear a jacket. So if you're someone who wants even, if 80 is too hot for you, then you can check out the Shoshone Caves as something to see over there in Eastern Idaho.
Yeah, caves are really cool. And I know this doesn't have anything to do with Idaho, but we went to Carlsbad Caverns down in New Mexico. That's in southeast New Mexico. And that was really, really cool. And so I would definitely be down to go to the Shoshone Caves. But then moving up into the Silver Valley area, there's biking the trail of the Coeur d'Alenes. So it's a 72-mile paved trail. It's perfect for a scenic family bike ride. and there's lots of lush green landscapes in the late spring. So that could be a really cool thing to do. You can also explore historic mining towns. You can visit Wallace and tour the Northern Pacific Depot Museum, the Oasis Bordello Museum, and then the Wallace Mining Museum before the summer crowds arrive, which is nice to do things before crowds.
Hint, hint, you can go check out our episode on mining history if you want to learn a little bit more about that.
Then there's also golfing at Galena Ridge, so you can play around in the mountain-style course. It apparently is stunning if you're into golf, and then it's even more stunning in the early summer when the wildflowers are in bloom. But that also brings up golfing as more of a general thing. Is there's golf everywhere. So if you're into golf, if you do that sort of thing. Find a course and get out and go play.
I don't know if it's the specific one we have here on the script, but I do know the Silver Valley, specifically the Coeur d'Alene area, is known for one golf course that people who really like golf will fly into. We talked about it, I think, a while back now, but my brain brought it up at this moment, which is it has a floating green that they can move and adjust the distance and stuff and things. Obviously, maybe not something for the family and being affordable, but it is something that's very unique just there to Coeur d'Alene with the different golf course type of related things. Plus, with stuff up north and all of it, it is unique in general. I know for someone who's probably lived up there, maybe you've seen it all, but I know for myself, every time I go and visit up there, I will usually try to make a detour off the main road, and I always find something interesting, always find something unique in the backcountry there. So even if you live up there, that would be my next thing to encourage, is just go take a drive and look at the map. Where's the places we've regularly gone? Let's try to loop out this way into this back town or this small little town or whatever and see what antique stores or what restaurants, maybe there's an ice cream parlor or something, whatever else there, because you don't have to worry about the roads being snowed in or something this time of year, because it's always paid off very, very well for me when I've explored northern Idaho.
Yeah, and then coming back down towards the Treasure Valley, but stopping off in the McCall Cascade area. So there's so much hiking around there. The McCall area has over 500 miles of hiking trails suitable for all skill levels. Well, I would guess not all of them are suitable for all skill levels, but that's right. But then great
English.
early season hikes, they include the Goose Creek Falls from Last Chance Campground. That's a 3-mile round trip. The Hazard Creek Falls, it's a 6-mile round trip to a rocky overlook of the falls. And then the Rapid River Trail, which is an 8-mile round trip along the river, and it's accessible from March through June. So definitely go check those out if you're into hiking and getting out into the woods and seeing things. It's an awesome experience.
Oh yeah.
But then also up in that area, there are tons of hot springs, and there are the official ones where you can go to a
They've got a venue all built out or a pool or whatever else.
But then if you know people, they can also point you to places where there are natural hot springs, and you can just go hang out in the river where it's hot randomly.
Oh yeah.
Some of the big ones though are the Vulcan Hot Springs, the Bergdorf Hot Springs, and then the Gold Fork Hot Springs. So those are really cool, but also, as a tip, talk to some locals and see where they like to
Wink,
go.
wink.
Because that's even more cool if you can like hike into a spot and then just hang out at a random spot in the river that is a hot spring. It's super cool.
It's one of the cool benefits of us being such a mountainous state. And I mean, here again, if there's someone from one of the other areas, I'm struggling right now because, I mean, there's some areas of the state I don't know super well, but most anywhere in the state, within an hour drive, there's a hot springs you can go to. I can say that confidently. If you're up north in the Silver Valley, if you're over in eastern Idaho, if you're in the Treasure Valley, McCall, there's going to be a hot spring somewhere nearby, and I guarantee you after it, you are going to sleep the best you ever have in your entire life. And the kids will as well.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out. Water has a way of tiring
It's also
you
all
out.
the minerals that are in there as well, I've heard.
Also that, yeah, just soaking in warm mineral water. It's like taking an Epsom salt bath.
Oh, those are heavenly. I haven't done one of those in a long time.
I find that when I hit high school, I grew to over 6 feet, and I don't fit in normal standard bathtubs anymore. And so the last time I took an actual bath was before high school. So yeah.
Nah, that's fair. It's weird how that sometimes happens, and I could go down that rampant, but talking about bathtubs and showers, that might get a little weird pretty quick. Um,
Yeah, it's true.
but with all of this, obviously we didn't cover everything. There might be things we missed, which if we have, please email us at lyimedia at protonmail.com, because I'm always looking for new stuff to talk about and to share and to look into. And I know we're trying to gear up to do videos as the summer's moving that direction. Granted, there's certain things that are happening there, but that's something we're trying to do. But in all of this, I would say that it's surprising how many times things are so close to you. And most of the time that I've found cool things, or most of the time any locals find anything that I know of, is just look at the map and be like, okay, where have we been? And cool, I haven't been to that town. That looks interesting. Or have a list of towns, and then just go and drop in and walk around downtown, especially when you go to small towns in Idaho. They're very walker friendly. Walk around them, talk to people, and you'll be amazed what you discover if it's something that, none of those things in your list or the list that we've given kind of ring a bell there. There are so many things, and especially all year. I've met some people that move here and maybe they come from a big city, right, where there's a lot of things that are always happening. And even in the Treasure Valley, they'll even say, well, there's nothing to do during the winter. I'm like, there is always things to do. The key is just knowing when they're happening and talking to people. And we're trying to move towards covering that better here on Local Yokel Idaho. But in the meantime, my recommendation is just talk around and go exploring where you haven't been before, because you might be surprised what you find. With all that said, and to get you out of here so you can get out in the wilderness, thank you for tuning into the entire show. I hope you found it enjoyable and informative. If we missed anything important or got anything wrong, please reach out to us via email at lyimedia@protonmail.com or on Twitter at Local Yokel Idaho. We appreciate your support and feedback as we work to bring you the most interesting and important stories across Idaho. That's all for now, and have a great rest of your week. Godspeed.